Amy Pilgrim, thanks for streaming with us. Incredibly graphic testimony today in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. And we have to warn you, some of what you hear,
this guy's uncomfortable. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Criminal defense attorney Bruce Rivers may have just cracked this case wide open, and not in the way anyone expected. In a jaw-dropping deep dive that's got legal circles in chaos and victims reeling, Rivers exposed a string of courtroom blunders, sloppy missteps, and outright constitutional violations that could completely flip the script on Sean Diddy Combs' conviction. Forget 20 years behind bars. According to Rivers, we might be talking weeks, maybe even days before Diddy walks out of prison a free man. And no, this isn't about some slick legal loophole. Rivers is saying the entire trial might have been poisoned from the inside out. If he's right, the justice system isn't just broken, it's bleeding.
Got this new audio from the Diddy trial, and it is pretty explosive. This is audio of a voicemail that Diddy left to the Jane Doe who's been testifying in this trial for the last couple days. And he sounds really annoyed. He's talking about her maybe giving him the silent treatment. His response is, I got a busy life. I can't be dealing with your silent treatment. And we got to...
It all started with a single note. Juror 25 wasn't following instructions. What looked like a small concern quickly turned into a flashing neon red flag. The moment that note landed on the judge's desk, everything changed. The case was compromised. According to Rivers, this moment could be the key that unlocks the entire door because it opens the path for what's called a Rule 33 motion. Now, if you're not fluent in legal jargon, Rule 33 is the courtroom equivalent of a Hail Mary. It gives the judge the power to throw out the verdict and demand a brand new trial. And guess what? That's exactly what Diddy's legal team is going for. This isn't just paperwork. They're going in swinging. They've either already filed or they're about to. And if the judge entertains it, 2 felony convictions could vanish like smoke in the wind. The irony? It's almost poetic. After years of disturbing allegations, a mountain of civil lawsuits, and a trial that felt more like a circus than a courtroom, Diddy could walk away clean, all because the system couldn't keep its house in order. But Rivers didn't stop there. He went all in on the issue of juror misconduct. He called out alternate juror number 6, a UN employee named George, who allegedly lied about not knowing he was an alternate. George also claimed that the main jury didn't follow basic instructions. Now, whether George is exaggerating or blowing the whistle on something serious, one thing's for sure, this jury's credibility is on thin ice. And when the foundation cracks, the whole structure starts to collapse. To make things worse, the verdict itself was a confusing mess. Diddy was acquitted of racketeering and trafficking, but somehow found guilty of transporting. It made no sense. The jury went from deadlocked to unanimous in under a day after saying they couldn't agree on the RICO charge. Rivers didn't ignore that. In fact, he highlighted it as a huge red flag. That kind of whiplash turnaround suggests the jury might not have been deliberating by the book. And the post-trial interviews? Even more bizarre. One juror casually admitted that the graphic video shown in court didn't even seem that bad. So now what we're looking at isn't justice. It's starting to feel more like a legal circus, with Diddy right in the center ring.
You know, I mean, the other thing that he said during that interview was that he took it in stride. You know, basically, he didn't say that, but I mean, he essentially did, and he says it was pretty tamed, and it didn't have the impact that one would.
And just when you thought this case couldn't get any messier, the whispers began. But these weren't tabloid rumors. They came from deep inside the legal world. Former jurors, anonymous paralegals, and court veterans who've been walking the Southern District halls for years. The buzz? That Diddy didn't just benefit from procedural chaos. He may have engineered it. Yeah, you heard that right. The latest whispers floating through Manhattan's court corridors are pointing to something far more sinister, a secret jury tampering network. It's the kind of scandal that doesn't show up on paper, but its fingerprints are all over the verdict. The theory is chilling. Selective jury research, quiet back-channel communications, private investigators allegedly feeding subtle misinformation to target jurors' impartiality. One insider, an ex-investigator with ties to top federal defense firms, claims Diddy's legal team might have hired third-party consultants who specialize in jury psychology to handpick sympathetic jurors before the trial even began. And while profiling jurors isn't illegal, combine that with alleged off-the-record contact between alternates and full jurors, and now we're in dangerous territory. We're talking contamination, silent meetings, late-night messages, and coordinated leaks. Suddenly, due process starts to look like a stage play, and the verdict? Just another scripted act. Could this whole trial have been a setup disguised as justice?
Than what's just right here. But the defense is now going to try and see if they can poke holes in this verdict. They're going to do that by two ways. One, saying that there wasn't enough evidence to convict him. And number two, that the jury was tainted. And if the jury is tainted, we have to have a new...
That's the question echoing through every courtroom hallway right now. And Diddy's defense? Oh, they're not wasting a second. They're going straight for the jugular, looking to punch holes through this verdict in two major ways. First, they're arguing that the evidence wasn't strong enough to convict. And second, and this one's the bombshell, they're claiming that jury was tainted. If they can prove that, a new trial isn't just possible, it's inevitable. We've seen powerful defendants play these kinds of shadow games before, but if even a fraction of this jury tampering rumor turns out to be true, this wouldn't just be another courtroom scandal, it would become a playbook for how to escape accountability at the federal level. And here's the kicker. Diddy, who was only convicted on 2 lesser charges, is already working the public relations machine from behind bars. He's enrolled in all the right programs, violence prevention, addiction recovery, even therapy under the STOP initiative. The headlines are already changing, but behind the scenes, legal experts are calling it what it is: damage control. One former federal prosecutor put it bluntly: this isn't remorse, it's strategy, a classic attempt to win leniency before sentencing. Meanwhile, the victims, those who stood in court and relived the most dehumanizing moments of their lives, are watching this all play out in horror. Imagine testifying about drug-fueled, camera-recorded freak-offs drenched in baby oil, only to watch the man at the center of it all possibly walk free because of elite defense maneuvering and procedural technicalities. One juror even said the video footage didn't seem that bad. Another casually mentioned the content didn't feel forced. And now, across national media, consent is being redefined in real time, while the justice system scrambles to cover its own tracks.
And Cassie's part of this because who were the for? They were for her, so he could watch her. Who wants to watch another man's wife, honestly, or girlfriend? Not me. I just think you gotta screw loose when you do that, especially if you have 1,000 bottles of baby.
The emotional whiplash? It's real. This trial wasn't cheap. Prosecutors spent upwards of $10 million in taxpayer money trying to frame Diddy as the puppet master behind a decades-long criminal empire. Homeland Security, the FBI, SDNY, they all came together for one reason: to expose the truth. But instead, they walked away with a split verdict, a win for Diddy's PR team, and now a Rule 33 motion that could wipe it all away like it never happened. And let's be clear, the verdict didn't end the outrage. It only poured gasoline on the fire. Women's rights advocates are calling this case a twisted love story gone completely off the rails. And one lawyer didn't hold back. If he escapes justice, what message does that send to victims everywhere? The clock is ticking now. Sentencing is set for October 3rd, but Diddy's legal team is trying to speed things up, and not out of some noble pursuit of closure. No, they know the longer he stays behind bars, the more likely new cracks will form in the foundation of their defense. So they're pulling at every thread they can find. Claims of procedural bias, uneven evidence presentation, and sentencing disparities. Their goal? Turn a 2-count felony into a slap on the wrist, or better yet, time served. Diddy's already been locked up since last September, and if Bruce Rivers is right, that might be all the time he ends up doing. But here's where it gets even darker. Because according to a former staffer who once worked on Diddy's private security team back in the early 2000s, this trial might just be the surface. There may be secrets buried far deeper than any court has dared to dig.
So that'll be coming up. I think they have a date in October, but they're asking for an expedited sentencing hearing, and the judge wants an array of cases showing how these cases have been sentenced in the past. In other words, with this 3553A factors, I don't want a disparity in sentencing, just because he's Sean Diddy Combs.
Cassie Ventura sat in that courtroom, eyes swollen, voice trembling, as she relived years of torment that had once been locked behind closed doors. And now, after risking everything to speak her truth, she's forced to watch it all unravel over what some are calling a procedural technicality. She told the court how she was shoved, kicked, and dragged across hotel floors, how she was filmed in states no one should ever be filmed in, all while under the influence of more than just pressure. Her testimony wasn't just vivid, it was haunting, raw, painful. And yet, here we are, facing the very real possibility that her abuser might walk free because a juror allegedly misunderstood courtroom instructions. For Cassie and for the other women who risked everything to testify, this isn't some legal glitch. This is a soul-crushing betrayal. One woman, referred to only as Jane, shared an equally disturbing story. She claimed Diddy choked her, fed her substances, and then forced her into one of his infamous freak-off nights, all in the span of a few hours. She broke down on the stand, sobbing as she described feeling trapped, degraded, and erased. She stepped forward believing her voice mattered. But now, as defense attorneys argue over alternate juror timelines and sentencing precedents, Jane is reportedly devastated by the cold, sudden shift in courtroom energy. According to a victim advocate who spoke outside the courthouse, these women feel tricked, like they were lured into a false promise of justice only to be re-traumatized all over again. And we've seen this pattern before, haven't we? Wealthy defendant, high-powered legal team, a justice system that bends when money talks. Former associates of Diddy, stylists, backup dancers, even a former bodyguard are now quietly distancing themselves, deleting photos, scrubbing mentions, dodging questions. One major music executive was overheard at a private brunch in LA, muttering, "If he gets out, we all better lawyer up." Because now, it's not just Diddy's freedom on the line, it's the entire power structure that once protected him.
But if you look at where he's at, it could be anywhere from in the 50s, and we looked at it, and depending upon how the judge fashions the guideline calculation with all the factors.
But there's another layer to this saga, one so dark, so explosive that even Diddy's most loyal insiders won't discuss it publicly. They're calling it the Freak-Off Vault. According to 3 former employees who spoke anonymously to Inner City Press, Diddy didn't just throw wild, ritual-like parties over the years. He documented them in detail. The whispers say he kept a private archive of explicit footage spanning decades, not just of himself, but of his guests, actors, athletes, politicians, executives, even other artists. If the footage ever got out, careers would be shattered, marriages destroyed, entire empires could collapse overnight. The speculation? These weren't just trophies, they were weapons, insurance policies, leverage. Insiders described locked rooms, encrypted hard drives, overseas safety deposit boxes, all allegedly containing blackmail-grade material. One former road manager even recalled witnessing a visitor being handed a USB drive. When the man hesitated, Diddy allegedly told him, "You know what's on it, don't forget." If that's true, this wasn't just a stash. It was a firewall, a last line of defense against betrayal, against prosecution, against exposure. Now, no one seems to know where those tapes are. Did they disappear during the federal raid? Were they moved before the subpoenas came down? Or did someone close to Diddy take them, waiting for the right moment to use them or destroy them? And here's where it gets chilling. One particularly grim theory circulating among industry insiders is this: if Diddy walks free, the tapes get torched. But if he stays locked up, they leak. A scorched earth strategy that could bring down far more than just a music mogul. We're talking about record labels, Hollywood studios, political donors, even entire reputations going up in flames. And suddenly, this isn't just a trial. It's a ticking bomb.
And a one-time offender is not going to go to prison over something like that. However, this has got a lot more yuck factor to it.
This isn't wild speculation. This is real. A sealed exhibit list from one of Diddy's earlier civil cases reportedly included references to personal digital media seized from his properties. We're talking hard drives, cell phones, even backup tapes, each labeled by date and city. Prosecutors never introduced this material in open court, but according to legal analysts, that wasn't because it lacked relevance. It may have been deemed too explosive, too off-topic, or maybe even too connected to people outside the direct scope of Diddy's trial. One insider suggested the government didn't want to trigger a dozen mini-trials inside the main trial. But now the question becomes, if those materials resurface, how many powerful people could fall? And what happens to the victims if that vault disappears forever? Evidence, whether real or rumored, could be lost, hidden, destroyed, or quietly buried under legal red tape. And that means the very proof these women may need to continue their fight could be slipping out of reach with every passing day. If those tapes include names and faces that still hold power, influence, and money, then trust, people will move mountains to make sure the public never sees what's inside. Some are even whispering that hush deals are already happening, under the radar. Private settlements, anonymous wire transfers, the kind of legal silencing that never sees a courtroom, but erases stories forever. Meanwhile, from inside a federal prison cell, Diddy is quietly staging his comeback. He's joined therapy programs, participated in abuse-focused group sessions, and signed up for anti-violence initiatives. On paper, it's accountability. In reality, it's choreography. This is the celebrity redemption playbook, polished, rehearsed, and perfectly timed to influence judges and soften public outrage. One minute, he's the mogul accused of orchestrating unspeakable acts, and the next, he's the humble inmate in government-issued sweats working on himself. Legal experts say this narrative arc, the fall from grace, the realization, the so-called transformation, isn't new. It's a tactic, a script. And nowhere is that more obvious than the timeline. Diddy's team had already introduced his enrollment in a batterers program before the trial even began. During the bail hearings, they leaned hard into this, arguing he wasn't a predator, but a man who recognized his mistakes and sought help early. Now that he's only been convicted on lesser charges, that early intervention has become the centerpiece of a strategy aimed squarely at mitigation. This isn't about innocence anymore. This is about control, of the message, of the sentencing, of how history will remember him. Right now, the judge has denied bail. Diddy will remain in custody until sentencing. But two tracks are happening at once. On one side, his team is pushing for minimum time, or none at all. On the other, the prosecution has made it clear they're going to ask for significant time behind bars. And so we arrive at this surreal moment. On one side, a mountain of civil suits, haunting testimonies, shattered lives. On the other, a high-profile defendant rewriting his image, a potentially missing archive of digital nightmares, and a courtroom caught between legal strategy and moral accountability. Justice, if it ever truly existed here, now teeters on the edge of a blade. So what happens next? Does Diddy's rumored release mark the start of a new chapter of chaos, one where secrets get buried deeper, victims silenced harder, and the elite close ranks tighter than ever? Or are we on the verge of a reckoning, one where the truth finally claws its way into the light, no matter how many lawyers, vaughts, or NDAs try to keep it buried. Is this the end of justice for Diddy's victims, or just the beginning of an even darker chapter? Let us know what you think in the comments. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and watch your back. The freak-offs might be over, but the fallout is just beginning.